Well, people are still talking about the White Lotus, right? I mean, you've got over 6 million people watching on Sunday night. Then you got the championship game on Monday. So a lot of people had to wait until Tuesday to get caught up. The numbers are nearing 10 million, and the critics are still largely unhappy. The viewers are piling in like they've never seen before. We're going to go and chat with one of the critics here from Forbes magazine, and then we've got the Karen Reed story covered. We've got a 30-year cop from the town where it all went down. It's Hot Mics with Billy Bush, brought to you by LA Golf. Let's get rocking. All right, we are rocking on TuneIn and YouTube right now. Thanks for listening to Hot Mics with Billy Bush. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for that. Well, we're still talking White Lotus. I mean, we thought, who's going to die? There's one body that was going to be found. We ended up finding 2 bodies. 3 people died in the main cast. Then a couple of bodyguards got shot. By my count, it's 5 bodies down in the White Lotus finale. But a lot of writers and a lot of people are saying that the season was, even though the viewership is up by 30%, that it wasn't the best season. It was lacking in plot. It was, a lot of problems. I don't know. I'm not smart enough, I guess, to get into the weeds, or I'm easily entertained. I thought it was fantastic. We're joined right now by Eric Kane, senior contributor to Forbes magazine, who has an entirely different take on the finale, different than me. Eric, you look like a very discerning fellow right there. You got the beard going here.
I do. You got to have the beard so you can stroke the beard. You got
to. Without it, you can't stroke it. That's exactly
You can't stroke the beard,
Before we get to your thoughts on the finale, or the season overall, I mean, you wrote this. I'm afraid that the success of the first 2 seasons must have gone to Mike White's head. What a mess. What a waste of time. It seems all the worries that I wrote about last week have come to fruition and then some. Jeez, man.
I know. It's a little harsh.
Wow. But don't you look forward to it every Sunday night? Don't you get excited about Lotus is on?
Yeah. No, I've been really positive about this season, actually. I think I wrote, I've written a review of each episode of the entire season. And through episode 6, I was still very, very upbeat, very positive. And it was episode 7 where I started to think, I don't think all these storylines are coming together in a way that's actually very satisfying. And then last night's or Sunday night's finale just kind of, I don't know. I was really disappointed with it.
Oh, man. Sunday, I mean, see, episode 7, the penultimate, felt like a giant setup. It felt like we were, but I didn't have any clue. My prediction was that Gaytok was going to jump in front of a bullet because his girlfriend Mook keeps telling him, you got to be a man and you got to embrace violence and sometimes you got to shoot. And he was, I'd rather sit by a koi pond and, Mr. Peace.
Yeah. And
I thought he was, but he ended up being one of the disgusting people that kind of went with opportunity. Like Belinda, the 2 most likable people became went the more detestable route. Yeah, I like that.
I kind of liked Belinda's turn to becoming Tanya. I mean, she basically, like, her arc was to become the very same person who kind of crushed her dreams in season 1. I was less fond of Gaytok's transition because I didn't feel like it was earned. He was very concerned with his morality. He was so concerned with upholding that morality that he wouldn't even turn in Valentine and the Russian thieves because he was worried about hurting them. And then he ended up shooting a man in the back who he didn't know for sure was the shooter, who was carrying a woman in his arms who he didn't know was dead. And yeah, there we go. And I just think that turn, and then of course he gets the girl, he gets the promotion, he gets all the things that he wanted, but there wasn't really like enough character development there to sort of justify that turn for his character, and it felt very jarring to me.
Felt flat to you. Rick and Chelsea, my favorite couple throughout the whole thing. Goggins and Wood, terrific, but you say they couldn't save the show.
Yeah,
I think they would, but they both went down very sort of poetic right there.
Yeah. Sure, it was very poetic. I think that was of all the storylines, I do feel like their storyline was the most compelling in the season, and it ended, in guns blazing and tragedy, and I felt very sad. It moved me. At the same time, I was bothered by the cliches, like the fact that Jim Hollinger was his father, right? I mean, that was so predictable. Everyone had predicted that, by the third episode or whatever.
Scott Glenn,
And
wasn't that the actor Scott Glenn?
Scott Glenn, yep. Who's great. I mean, he kind of looks like he could be Walton Goggins' dad, right?
Yeah.
But he, just to get to that point and have it all play out that way, I guess it just felt, well, it felt frustrating to me, but it also felt like it felt like all the stories were so disconnected this season in a way that in the previous seasons, and especially season one, which
Yeah, there
felt
was no
like all the
interaction
different,
between people. Very
yeah,
little. Well, Patrick Schwarzenegger was trying to get naked with
sure.
with everybody.
Right, right. Yeah, including his brother.
Well, his brother was. Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like, I thought Patrick Schwarzenegger did a great job. I thought his acting, especially this episode, when he was looking out across the beach at Chelsea running into Rick's arms, and you could sort of see that he was feeling not jealousy, but like this loss of something he's never had, right? He's never had real
A
love. He's never had
normal,
that
loving
connection.
relationship
Right.
is possible for him, as you see that maybe it's not just all about getting off to porn
Right.
and wherever.
And hooking up and that the sort of empty hookup culture. But then he doesn't get to have any reaction or any sort of uh, catharsis or anything to do with Chelsea. She's dead and he's off on a boat, and it's like he doesn't even know it
Yeah, and he
happened.
kind of really liked her. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah, he
so.
liked her, and I think in a way, like, he still has her book on the boat, right? In a way, she connected with him that I think was that in a way that was more important than sex. It was more important than the things he valued, and yet he still doesn't get to have any sort of reaction or development around her death. And I think that's kind of a wasted opportunity. Same with the Ratliff family in general. We don't really get any sort of fallout from Timothy, Jason Isaac's character, from his fraud and embezzlement. We don't get to see Parker Posey react to him destroying their lives. And I feel like that's, we get to see them sitting on the boat, and that's it. It's and I know that like defenders of the show will say, well, it's ambiguous, and ambiguity is compelling in its own way. And sure, that's true, but like I wanted more. I think a lot of people wanted more from that family and kind of where they ended up.
It's amazing you're writing this for Forbes. It's a financial magazine. I mean,
Yeah.
they let you write about the White Lotus when, I mean, shouldn't you be writing about Sri Lankan, 44% tariffs and
Yeah, yeah, no, I should be writing about how the tariffs affect, TV production or whatever. Yeah, I've been writing at Forbes for 14, 15 years now. They cover a lot now. The publication since
yeah.
about 2011 really just expanded its coverage into a whole lot of areas. So,
You, you said the Gossip Girls stop gossiping for once. Again, the story of these three friends, which Leslie Bibb, Michelle Monaghan, and Carrie Coons. It's been interesting, but it was given more room to breathe. But like most of the subplots this season, it spun its wheels and went nowhere fast. You could cut all three characters from the show entirely and lose nothing. Now, I don't agree with you there.
sure.
I thought they added great texture. I thought this relationship, this awkwardness between them, I loved it. You know that this happens when there's three women, not two, three is the right
yeah.
number, and they just kind of, when one's out of the room, it's backstabby, it's gossipy, it's brutal.
Yeah, no, I think it was a really realistic portrayal of sort of the downfalls of female friendships in particular. I think it was, I mean, I think everything that was in their storyline was great. But I think that it needed to be its own show, basically. Like, I don't think that it fit with the rest of the story. I mean, they barely have any interaction with other characters. There's that one awkward scene between Parker Posey and Kate Bibb, and then there's, and Saxon tries to hit on them, and they interact with the Russians a little bit. But there's not really like a through line where those characters really matter to any of the rest of the plot. And then I feel like we kept building their story and building their story, and then they were like, okay, we need to wrap this up now. Let's just have Carrie Coon do a really good monologue, and that's it. Like I feel like
But
there
we
is a
didn't know
great
enough
story
about
about
her
these
home.
characters.
We didn't know enough about Carrie Coon's home life
Sure.
a little bit more would have been. You never saw anyone at home. Maybe that like who is, the Trumper that is married to Leslie Bibb. Where is the younger actor that Michelle Monaghan is? We just sort of take the word for it, and then Carrie Coon's with this lawyer,
With
corporate,
her
miserable life.
divorce and her failed career
Yeah.
and her teenage daughter and like yeah, I mean all of that could have been fleshed out into something I think that could have been a really interesting story. I just don't think it fit here, and I think that like I'm not criticizing the way those characters were written or their interactions. All of that I think was done really well. But it's like they get to this point and then it's like, okay, we have to leave. So let's just wrap it up. And like now we're all friends again. And then they have to run away from there's another thing. They run away from this shooting, which was a pretty funny moment, actually. Like Carrie Coon's really booking it.
Yeah.
And then they're on the boat and everything's fine. Like, where's the whole like police investigation? Why is everyone leaving and waving and everyone's fine?
Another good point.
And instead of like what a more realistic
This is why you're the critic and I'm the fan, Eric
right.
Kane.
It's a terrible curse to be a critic.
Eric Kane of Forbes magazine, who's writing about the Lotus here. The one person Timothy doesn't mean to poison, Timothy Ratliff, the father who's, facing financial ruin. He doesn't mean to poison, ends up poisoning himself. The dumb, dim-witted, stupid, empty-headed little Lachlan, played by Sam
Yeah.
Nivola, finds the blender in the morning, still goopy with the poison seeds from the forbidden fruit and bad coconut milk, and he decides, hey, instead of rinsing this out, I'll make a protein shake and drink it. Who does this? Who doesn't rinse out and ideally wash a filthy blender filled with milky stuff and what looks like dried hearts of palm? Yeah, that's a small thing, but I guess he can't almost die if he doesn't.
See, this is one of those things where I talk about plot conveniences, I guess. People will say, well, teenage boys are stupid, and they are stupid. They are very stupid. But I remember I like look at that blender. You don't get up in the morning and just mix a new shake in that blender. Like the only reason you do this is for a TV show to have something happen in it, There's no way like they could have, and this is one of those easy fixes. You have him sneak back out that night and do it, or I don't know. It just
I
the
think
whole
the
time
answer to
through
the
his
question,
death scene.
Eric, the answer to the question is the reason why he did is because remember Dad said you can't have a pina colada. Dad's original intention was he was going to poison the whole family
Right.
and they would die together in a full family suicide. But when he did that, he said to the son, you can only have a Coke. He wanted him to go on and be and have a life, but he wouldn't give him alcohol. So when the boy found the remaining stuff in the blender, he wanted alcohol. He wanted to numb all those painful feelings.
Okay, if I'm the teenage boy in this scenario and my mother has mentioned that there are like 6 bottles of wine in the cupboards, I don't drink what I have been told is bad coconut milk. I just open a bottle of wine.
Yeah, but then she notices you've opened a bottle.
Yeah,
Now
they're
there's
leaving
5
that
and
day.
one's open, Eric. And Mom doesn't have her lorazepam, so she's paying attention now.
Yeah, she is. That's true. Man,
all right,
she handled that pretty well.
In
the loss
summation-
of her lorazepam.
Exactly. In summation, Eric, you write, this was the least satisfying, least funny, least shocking, least impressive season of The White Lotus so far. Had it been the first, I'm not sure we'd ever have gotten a second, let alone a third. Now, I want you to know Mike White has responded to you and maybe other critics, or maybe this is just to you. Mike said there was a lot of complaining about how there's no plot. That part I find weird. It never did. Part of me is just like, bro, this is the vibe. I'm world building. If you don't want to go to bed with me, then get out of my bed, Eric. I'm edging you. Edging. Enjoy the edging, Eric. If you don't want to be edged, then get out of my bed. Do you know what I mean? Don't be a bossy bottom, Eric. Get out of my bed. Don't come home with me. Don't get naked in my bed. Get the F out of my bed. Do you know what edging means?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Oh, everyone
Although
knows what edging, but me.
we didn't get into edging in this season, just cucking. So
Just cucking, no edging.
just cucking, no edging.
Well, there will be
That's that should be the subtitle for my article. Just cucking, no edging.
Oh my God. Well, listen, Eric. Thank God there will be a season 4. Do you have
I agree.
They have a huge deal, $25 million deal with the 4 seasons, so we know it's going to be a great resort. Do you have any idea where this might be?
I've heard Egypt or the French Riviera, but that's just like rumor mill. Who knows?
Oh man.
Anywhere. It could be anywhere.
Wouldn't you love to be
I love the locations.
Oh, I'd love to be on the White Lotus scouting crew. All I know is Mike White and his crew are
Yes.
going to be feted somewhere beautiful.
Hey, Billy.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Billy.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, so we brought this up last show, too, about where it's going to be. There's also a lot of talk about a snow, like one in the snow, skiing and stuff.
Oh.
This is out there.
Yeah, he
Just so you
said
know.
he said he's not going to do crashing waves. He said he's kind of over the crashing wave
Okay.
vibe. I'm not over it.
Aspen.
Aspen, yeah, there you go. Eric Kane from Forbes magazine. You're smarter than me. I think I was saying this is a great episode. Everything's perfect, and then you made some valuable points, and that's why you're writing for Forbes, and I'm just mouthing off. Thank you for your time, and we will let's stay in touch as we get going again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great
It was
beard.
fun.
Great beard. Eric Kane. There you go. Coming up. The Karen Reed murder trial. Ooh, we've got someone with boots on the ground who has a one-of-a-kind insight into this murder investigation. He spent 3 decades in law enforcement, working right in the Canton, Massachusetts Police Department. Retired Sergeant Peter Murphy joins me coming up. But first, if you are listening to Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by LA Golf on TuneIn, don't miss a section of the action with TuneIn Premium and unlock access to college sports with every NHL game with blackouts. I'm a big hockey guy. Plus, enjoy more than 100,000 commercial-free music and news stations globally so you can stay connected. If it's live radio, it's all on TuneIn, no matter where in the world it is. Go to tunein.com/premium and sign up today to unlock it all. We're back in 30 seconds with the Canton Cop.
Welcome to LA Golf. You guys ready for the tour? We're the only golf company that manufactures its clubs here in the United States. All LA Golf drivers are built right here.
I'm very excited for today's production. It's going to be
4 left.
Anybody hungry? So does he work here?
Work here. He lives here.
Welcome back to Hot Mics with Billy Bush, brought to you by LA Golf. Well, I have been following the Karen Reed, John O'Keefe murder case nonstop. It is absolutely riveting. The basis of it's a 5-part docuseries right now on Max. People have consumed it like crazy. The first trial for Karen Reed, faced with murder and leaving the scene and involuntary manslaughter, ended in a mistrial. Judge Beverly Cannoni said, that's it. We'll throw it out. And what happens? Well, the new trial has already begun. So there were so many people out in the streets in Canton and Dedham and in that area. Now they're back out. Jury selection going. And this is going to be a whole nother round. We got a guy on the show from the Massachusetts town where it all went down, Canton. He spent 3 decades in law enforcement and retired as sergeant in the Canton Police Department. His name is Peter Murphy, and he joins me right now. Sarge, it is very good to see you. Thank you for your service to the police. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to spread what I think to be is very important information. So
first, give me a sense, Peter, of what's going on in the area. Are all the people who live in Canton, Dedham, all the towns surrounding, are people engrossed in this thing? Is everybody talking about it, down at the coffee shop?
To a degree. I mean, everybody's very, very aware of it, Billy. The main issue is that there is a high degree of fear in the community, instilled by, we'll say, some of the third-party culprits and or bad actors. And I was told by people in the neighborhood and so forth, Peter, don't get involved. You're crazy. There's a lot of peripheral concern that this is these are Rough Riders that are in this suspect list. And I was also told by 2 police officers not to come to town for any police officers' funerals because there was a target on my back, Billy,
Really?
because I stepped out of the box.
Oh, okay. Wow. So, all right, let me just for folks, if you don't know about the Karen Reed, you've definitely passed it on your Max, to watch list. I recommend doing it. It's absolutely riveting. But what's going on here is the Commonwealth of Mass is going after Karen Reed for murder, and there is the whole trial, the first trial. Got thrown out, like I told you, but there are, when you say bad actors, I mean, no question, this Massachusetts state cop by the name of Michael Proctor, he's the guy that showed up and took over the investigation. When Karen Reed is out at a bar with her boyfriend, a Boston cop named John O'Keefe, they drink until closing time, and then they drive to 34 Fairview. They drive to the address of a retired Boston cop, retired now, Brian Albert. And Brian's got everybody over at the house, his wife, he's got his friends, a bunch of cops, an ATF agent by the name of Brian Higgins, who had been flirting on text with Karen Reed herself. So there's an interesting connection with them. Anyway, Karen Reed leaves in a huff and leaves John at the house thinking he's going to stay and party, and she takes off. Well, what the Commonwealth is saying is that when she took off, she hit and killed her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her car. The man, Officer O'Keefe, is found the next morning at 6 a.m. on the lawn. He is dead. There's cocktail glass shards around him. We have crash analysts who say, it's impossible that a car could have backed up like that, even, 60 feet, couldn't have hit 20 miles an hour and knocked this guy 10 feet up onto the lawn. That's not possible. There's a snowplow driver that came by at 2:30 in the morning. He didn't see a body there. None of that. And then you got all these sort of... The investigator, Michael Proctor, who took over from the young Canton police officer who was first on the scene, that guy, as the investigator, never goes into the house. He never goes into Brian Albert's house to see what could be going on there. And then, Sergeant Murphy, we've got teeth marks, scratch marks, all up and down the arm of John O'Keefe when he's discovered. How does a car do that backing up to a guy? Well, there's a dog inside that house, a 90-pound dog named Chloe, who doesn't like strangers. And on those wounds of John O'Keefe, do they find pig DNA? Well, where does that come from? One would think probably treats that you give a dog, or, pork dog food, whatever it is. Anyway, Karen Reed, they say, Karen, we heard you saying, I hit him. And the police and the state are saying this woman absolutely killed her boyfriend. Now, nobody else has been impugned here, and so there's a lot of feeling that there's something dirty going on with the police department. Are you comfortable enough right now, Sarge, to say that you're one of them, that you think these guys are corrupt?
Yeah, I bought into the program. I bought into the narrative, Billy. The morning of, or the next day when it first came up on the news, and I said to myself, "Gee, what a tragedy!" I worked with 95% of the police officers that have ever had anything to do with this case. I brought them on as new recruits on my watch as a sergeant. And I believe the story that was being told from the DA's office and also from the Canton police, who, as I said, many of them were my personal friends until April. And I know you've had that renowned journalist blogger, Aidan Kearney, on your show. And Aidan kind of broke the case open back in April of 23. I jumped in. I also saw autopsy reports speaking to the arm lacerations and puncture wounds that you just mentioned, Billy. And I said, oh, my God, they've hoodwinked me for the last 15 months. This is not what happened at that crime scene.
When you talk about I had him on, and that is the local blogger and
right.
YouTuber journalist named Turtle Boy, Aidan Kearney, but he
right.
goes by Turtle Boy. And he said he was looking over, the police reports, and he noticed at 2:27 a.m., a woman inside that party at that house named Jennifer McCabe got onto her Google search on her phone, and she searched how long to die in the cold.
Correct.
Well, then she deleted that, according to a digital forensic expert, deleted that, and later Googled it again at 6:30 in the morning after the body had been discovered. But the original search, according to that analyst, was at 2:30 in the morning. That set Turtle Boy off. He started asking questions. Next thing you know, everybody's sort of on this thing. So you know these people. The young cop, I'm sure you don't know the young cop because he was so young. He was the first one onto the scene. He searched right, where the body was and found nothing but cocktail shard glasses. Hours later, when the state trooper Michael Proctor, who has ties to everybody inside that house, when he took over, they found all kinds of shards of taillight, red taillight, later 46 pieces of taillight. Then they found a piece of John O'Keefe, the deceased's hair, stuck into the taillight at the car. The defense put forward a video that showed Michael Proctor inspecting the car, but the video was reversed to make it look like he was on the driver's side. And really, they figured it out. No, he was on the passenger side where that taillight was broken. So clear, certainly question marks about tampering. Let me ask you, what would you have done if you were still on duty and you had arrived to that house? Would you? I mean, the fact that the guy never went in, would you? You would have gone inside, right?
Yeah, Billy. I mean, there are certain protocols and just kind of definitely rules of the road for crime scene investigation, policies and procedures. There's dead body procedures. There's suspected mortal wound procedures. The main thing you try to do is preserve the crime scene, and immediately, in conjunction with that, Billy, you want to do an exigent search for perhaps other victims. In other words, anybody that responded to that scene would have and should have known the Brian Albert's involvement with the Boston police as a fugitive supervisor and gang unit, and any call for service to that house should have brought all the officers on duty that day for anything. Body on the lawn, shots fired, suspicious car, all boots on the ground on the police department working that shift would have responded.
And not only they all didn't respond, but Brian Albert himself, an investigator with a lot of experience in this area, never left his house. He never went out to look what was going on, never checked on the body, never did anything. So back to your position here in the community. Are you comfortable, drawing up some big question marks and raising some doubts as to what actually went on here?
Yes, as I said, Billy, I reversed my my conception of what happened back in April of 23, and I have been very out front with criticism and providing information on different media sites in Canton. And you asked me what I would have done. You basically you secure the scene, you check for other victims, you secure witnesses, you try to isolate them so they don't talk to each other. Maybe put their phones in a secure place so they can't call. Everybody's a suspect at 6:10 that morning when you got a dead cop laying on a lawn in another cop's house, and the cop doesn't come out of the house. I mean, it's got some real questions immediately by 6:15. Any officer on scene and any supervisor, including the deputy chief right across the street from number 34, who was home, he should have come out and established himself as the incident commander. They should have put a command vehicle on the way, which they had access to through a Metrolec. They could have got school buses. There's so much. They did nothing according to protocol, and shame on them. And I would suggest to you, they could have asked for a warrant. They could have asked for consent to go through the house. And I would doubt we'd be having this conversation today if that investigation was conducted properly, Billy.
If you're joining us right now, you're listening on TuneIn or on YouTube. We're talking to a man with 3 decades of service, retired as a sergeant in the Canton, Massachusetts Police Department. This is where this whole Karen Reed event went down, where John O'Keefe, officer who was dating Karen Reed, died. She is now facing her second trial right now, and she's up against a lot. She's up against the state police. She's up against the state. She's up against... I feel bad for the Canton police officer, the little guy this is the department for which you serve. This young guy, they're basically calling him an idiot because all he could find was, a cocktail glass and a shard. And, 2 hours later, a much more experienced guy, and Michael Proctor, finds a ton of broken taillight around the scene. I mean, that guy... Could anyone be that stupid as to not see taillights? They're red in the snow.
Yeah, I mean, Canton police threw a couple of police officers down there, Billy, and initially on the first call, but they never secured the scene. People were walking up and down the street. There's so much they could have and should have done, and they didn't do to preserve evidence and secure the scene. And 2 officers went into eventually and finally went into the 34 Fairview residence at 9 o'clock, which, as you know, quick math is it's 3 hours after they found a body on a cop's lawn, and it was another officer. They waited 3 hours to go in and check for other victims that could have been in that house, knowing the business that officer, Brian Albert, was in. And 3 hours later, they decide to go in and have a coffee, and nobody really got interviewed in that house. It was just in one sentence, I couldn't say to you, you couldn't have screwed that investigation up worse if you wanted to.
And did you get some?
So maybe they did want to.
Maybe they did want to. Yeah, that's the big question. Is this a big conspiracy? I mean, look, there is a fraternal order of police, right? It's a brotherhood. It's a family. It's a one for one, one for all for one type of mentality here. And could that stretch even to the most gruesome, extenuating circumstances, which is a murder cover-up?
That's the $100 question. I used to kiss my children goodbye every shift that I'd go out, not knowing whether I'd come back safe or sound. And the thin blue line, the culture is there, but I mean, at what point do you say to yourself, wait a minute, we're talking about a murder here. This isn't an insignificant event that we're going to back each other up. I mean,
and there's no way. I mean, look. I mean, we're rational people. It's not likely that someone said, "I'm going to kill this guy." Something happened. Tempers flared. Lots of alcohol was consumed. There were some hotheads in the house. Brian Albert, the owner of the house, his son was there. It was his birthday. He had some meathead buddies over. The whole thing. Does the guy go in? Does the dog, jump off? I mean, I keep thinking the dog just jumped because it doesn't like strangers, and it was later conveniently rehomed. I don't know where that dog is now. They probably killed the thing and put it down because it was, they didn't want to, but they got rid of that. But tempers flared, something went down. Maybe the dog jumped all over, John O'Keefe, and he threw the dog off, and they said, "Get off my dog," and, just drunken things. Bang, bang, hits to the head. Because remember, John O'Keefe is found on the lawn. He's got bruises to his head, but nothing below the neck, where a car might have hit him. A car didn't just back up and hit him in the head only. There's nothing to his body, and if it's going to have to hit him hard, if it's going to kill him, there would be bruising on the body because it had to hit him really, really hard. Now, Sarge, you got a audit, right? You've got some actual paperwork that came out about this investigation. What can you share?
Yes, there was a very, very, very contentious vote in the town back in October. I think it was October of last year. And it was to petition the funding for an audit, an outside independent audit to come in and check the police department. And I could show you, I have here's basically, if you don't mind me showing these just quickly, here's basically, I guess there's a total of 100. Well, yeah, I mean, it talks, there's 206 pages here, Billy, of
Wow.
table of contents. And then what I want to tell you is that they did come to a conclusion, and here is the evidence pack from the audit, the summarization, which they're going to go over Saturday at the Canton High School.
Independent on-site audit, an independent audit from location of the town of Canton Police Department. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And,
Correct.
And what did it? In short, it said a terribly botched investigation.
Yes, they conducted the investigation from November 18th until just, I believe, March 31st or 30th. But they address rules of evidence and crime scene searches, and they basically found some serious issues, which is on this page here. I could read it to you, or I can basically say that they botched the investigation is what the audit found out.
So here we go. We're going to see what happens this trial. I mean, the last one went from April 2024 and ended July 1st, 2024. And this one is underway. Who knows how much longer it'll last. The biggest travesty in the whole thing. A lot of people are talking about this judge, Beverly Canoni, because when the foreman of the jury, the original jury, handed her their ruling, she read it. But what she did not include, which was confirmed later by 5 out of 12 jurors, was that jury acquitted Karen Reed unanimously on the charge of murder and leaving the scene. Where they weren't in unison is on involuntary manslaughter, because I mean, she had a ton of drinks, so you can't say definitively that something didn't happen. But anyway, the fact that she did not read out the 2 acquittals means that the whole thing has to start over again, which is deeply, deeply unfair. A lot of people probably calling Judge Beverly Canoni corrupt, I would imagine, too.
Yeah, that's going around. And just, I want to bring 2 other points of information out, if you don't mind. It'll only take a second.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the courtroom during one of the hearings, and the defense team basically stated that the feds had provided 3,074 pages of exculpatory information and evidence to both the defense, the judge, and the prosecution. In that statement, the defense also read and said that the ARCA people had said that there was no way those injuries on John O'Keefe's body were consistent with being hit by a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
And also that the case should not go to trial. It did not warrant going to trial. District Attorney Morrissey still pushed it into the first trial, and here we are going to a second trial. And one other point I was going to make to you is when John O'Keefe's body was found out in the lawn, there was only a couple of inches of snow at that time. And if he lost a great volume of blood, which the autopsy showed, Billy, there would have been a pool of blood magnified around his body, under his head, where he would have drained out had he died there. So do the math. I don't believe, and I think evidence is going to show, and probably if the feds come into this case and take it away as a corruption case, perhaps under a RICO statute, I don't know, that blood issue is going to become very important, as is the taillight. And I was the one that brought the taillight into the arena because a friend of mine who worked on the job owned a body shop, and he actually took the taillight out. But they did no paperwork. He didn't appear in any reports, no chain of custody, no supplemental report. Very, very concerning and very suspicious.
Wow, your friend is the one who received the car and looked. You know the guy that received the taillight and took the pieces out.
Well, here's what he did. He took the taillight out of the vehicle, out of the sheet metal, and handed it over to the state police, I believe. But there was no paperwork, no documentation anywhere.
Oh.
And when I asked him who directed him to do it, he declined to tell me. Which
Michael
is a little
Proctor.
Pardon me?
Must be Michael Proctor.
Who
knows?
I don't have the receipt as to who did it because he refused to tell me, but he took it out, and basically, I believe there's a story out there that he told another retired police officer that there was only a crack in that tail light, and she backed into something solid. There were not 46 other pieces.
Right. And then, of course, at 5 o'clock in the morning when she went to look for the body, she backed into a car. We saw it on a Ring camera. That she backed into the car of John O'Keefe. Wow. Well, look, we may find out that there's some dirty cop action in the area, but we know one thing. There are lots and lots of great, clean cops who have served our communities, and one of them we're talking to right now, Sergeant Peter Murphy. I really appreciate your time. We'll be watching the trial, and we'll stay in close touch.
Thank you, sir. It was good talking to you.
Good talking to you. And one of the great, beautiful Boston accents right there. I just love a beautiful, when he says March, when the month of March is my favorite, when they say match. I love match. I can still hear you laughing. You're still there. Peter Murphy, we thank you. Hot mics, hot takes coming up. Also, we have an unbelievable story of a great entrepreneur, a nothing kid, literally poor as they come, from Louisiana, knocks on the door. Somehow the guy becomes assistant press secretary to the president of the United States and goes on to build two of the most amazing companies in the world of sports. He's our friend, and his name is Reed Dickens. Oh, wrong side. And he is the CEO and founder of LA Golf. Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by LA Golf, returns in 60 seconds. But let me tell you right now, if you're listening to us on TuneIn, make sure you don't miss a section of the action with TuneIn Premium and unlock access to college sports, every NHL game with blackouts, and more. Plus, enjoy more than 100,000 commercial-free music and news stations globally so you can stay connected. Go to tunein.com/premium and sign up today to unlock all of it. Back in a flash.
Welcome to LA Golf. You guys ready for the tour? We're the only golf company that manufactures its clubs here in the United States. All LA Golf drivers are built right here.
I'm very excited for today's production. It's going to be
4 left.
Anybody hungry? So does he work here?
Work here? He lives here.
And welcome back to Hot Mics with Billy Bush, sponsored by LA Golf, sponsored by Cut to Guest right now. Cut to Guest, and you will see how handsome our sponsor is. I'm telling you, you thought I had good hair. Wait till this hair shows up. Reed Dickens is with me right now, and he's the founder and CEO of LA Golf, and before that, Marucci Bats. Oh my God, the Yankees and their tornado bats and all that crap. He founded that company. He sold that company for a reported $200 million. But his story is incredible because it's really a great story. It's the American dream. It's a great story of entrepreneurship and just fighting and fighting and punching until you get there. So if anyone is out there wondering, is it going to happen for me? This is a great story for you. Reader, it is so good to see you, man. Look at the hair. Jeez.
Great to be here.
I love you, buddy. Thank you for doing this. Thank you. By the way, thank you for sponsoring Hot Mics. And I told you that the origin of why Hot Mics is this, why LA Golf is the sponsor is I just love your stuff. I love the putter, the driver, the irons, everything I play with is LA Golf, and I shoot in the upper 70s on a regular basis. I think I took $700 from you the last time we played.
It's cost me dearly.
I shouldn't do that. You're the one who gave me the clubs. You fool. You did it to yourself.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Before we get to LA Golf, the story is so great. People need to know about it. So you look, born in 1977, Monroe, Louisiana. How is in the sticks, in the city? Were you on a street with other people?
Monroe's a small town, typical southern town, lots of sports, not travel sports. Now today, my kids basically play professional sports, traveling, but typical, lots of Friday night football, men sitting around talking about who was going to be the starting varsity quarterback in 7 years, that type of thing.
Just America. Yeah. You sold vacuum cleaners and kitchen knives door to door. Now, if you're doing door to door sales, that's called cold calling, and there's nothing brutal. There's nothing more brutal than that. You did this while you were in college to put yourself through. That's a humble start.
Yeah, I sold cadmium metal out of the cadmium metal and whole house water purifiers out of the phone book, vacuum cleaners and kitchen knives door to door, fishing boats, even though I'd never been in a boat. Sold everything. Yeah.
But what for? Like, was it because this? Was it to make a little money, to have some spending money, so you could have some fun, or was it like, I'm gonna make it big? I'm gonna do something.
It was survival. We had, we were in a small paper mill town, and before the internet, when the paper mill shuts down, I sound like a John Edwards speech, but when a mill shuts down in a small town, everyone loses their jobs, and people used to ask, well, why didn't you guys move? And I would say, move to where? My dad, we bought 3 lawnmowers and had an old yellow station wagon, and we mowed several dozen yards a week in the 100-degree weather. And when I got to college, my mom got sick, and I had 4 younger brothers, and so there was no money, there was no health care. So I was working. I usually worked 2 to 3 jobs at a time, and went to school full time, and tried to help out with my little brothers my whole 4 years of college.
And you graduated magna cum laude or magna cum lousy?
Something like that. No, I made good grades, but I finished at LSU in Shreveport, and a PR degree at LSU in Shreveport does not put you on the fast track to anywhere.
But you managed to turn that PR degree. Tell us how you got to the front gate of George W. Bush's governor's mansion and ended up getting inside and interning for him.
Yeah, the brief backstory is it's a Forrest Gump story, because I didn't know any better, right? I didn't know what I didn't know. I had seen a photo on the LSU wall of some interns with the congressman. I didn't really even understand, this is I didn't really understand that wasn't the White House, and didn't know anyone in politics, didn't really know anything about politics. And I said to my professor, I said, I'd like to do that. How do I become an intern? He said, you can't. It's just for donors' kids. And I said, but what if I'd like to? You can't. And so I called my congressman's office every morning for about 90 days. And finally, a lady, I got a call back, and they told me I could come for 10 days. I didn't even know it wasn't a real internship, right? So I got some stationery from the grocery store, an American flag stationery, sent it out to everyone I know, because I didn't have money for a suit or shoes or a plane ticket. Raised about $3,000 and went to D.C. for 10 days. And sat next to a lady, the only person I found out in August in D.C., no one's working. It's scary if you watch the government. No one's working. There was one lady sitting at her desk working. I actually spoke to her this morning, named Sally Canfield. And I pulled up my desk, my chair to her desk, and said, I want to help you. Long story short, a year later, she sends out an all-inbox email, said, Governor Bush looking for policy staff. And I was like, here I am, right here. I responded many times. We didn't get a response back from her, and I gave her a hard time this morning about that. But I finally tried a dating tactic and said, "Hey, I'm gonna come over to the Bush campaign to volunteer and intern." And she responded, "Great, come say hi." So I printed that piece of paper out. I drove over. I had a few $100s to my name. Drove over to Austin. The guy said, "You don't have an appointment." I said, "That's your problem." I showed her the piece of paper.
She showed the email that said, "Come say hi."
And it was pre-9/11, so I talked my way in the door, and I went and sat down next to her and said, "I'm your new intern." She said, "I don't have interns." I said, "You do now."
You do now, Sally Canfield. And so in you go, and by the way, at this point, you have no idea the man's going to become president of the United States. So you're just in Austin. Okay, well, off he goes to the White House, and you go with him. You become assistant press secretary, working for Ari Fleischer, who was the communications director at the time, and we all remember his press conferences. So one story I love. George Bush W has become, and full disclosure, my first cousin. He has become the most memeable former president.
So he's a walking.
At Obama. I mean, he's just. Oh my God! At Carter's funeral, when he slaps Obama in the stomach, and then
he and Michelle
have
everywhere.
their thing. Hey, man! But the video that everyone, it was at a tough time. Of course, it's post 9/11, and he's on the golf course.
Yeah.
And it's the great video where he comes over and says something to the effect of, "Well, we have the video, but your responsibility was to keep the press away. Do not let them near the president right now." And you were asleep at the wheel, and the press got in, and thank God they did, because this viral moment is what everybody loves. Roll it.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
And the drive was great.
I still get chills. I get cold chills because I was given one job. ESPN has a segment called "You Had One Job." I had one job, and that was to keep him away from the press pool that travels with him. I think I was the only communications staff there that weekend at Kennebunkport, and he had left his pitching wedge in his bag or something like that. I went back to get something, and I left him unattended for 60 seconds, and I walked back, and he's walked up the hill to talk to the press, and because Saddam Hussein had just put out some statement the day before and threatening, and my phone, people love to say their phone blew up. My phone literally blew up.
Look, we're golfers, and we're guys. And the fact that he hit the drive perfectly after saying that to the media. See, that is a viral moment no matter what. You hit a good one. It's a super viral moment if you shank one. I will never forget when the Walker Cup team at a club that you and I play golf at, Al Michaels, I'm playing with, a sports broadcaster, Al Michaels, and the Walker Cup team, the greatest amateurs in the country, are there, and they're practicing because, of course, they've got the big match, the Walker Cup against the UK down the street at LACC. So they're just warming up. And Al Michaels comes up. They all go, "Oh, it's Al!" And he does a big greeting, and he says to them, "All right, boys, watch and learn." He tops one into the ravine. I mean, this moment, when you tee it up like that, you got to hit a beauty. How relieved were you and the staff later that he piped one?
You know what's funny? People always talk about the pitch at Yankee Stadium after the World Series, but I think one of the most clutch moments ever was him just making contact with that ball, because it was a lot of fans and a lot of cameras.
God, did we have pleated khakis? He's wearing pleated khakis. I just noticed that.
Baggy pleated khakis. Yeah.
Baggy pleated khakis.
Shirts down to the elbows. Yeah.
Just everything's really tightened up since. Anyway, but you served there for the first administration, and you say to George W., okay, I gotta get on with my life. I got some dreams. I want to go and do something. Is that when you moved straight out to Los Angeles?
Yeah, I had met my now wife at a party. My roommate at the time, his twin brother was an actor. We went to a party at the Daytime Emmys, and I dreamed about living in LA. I'd just been obsessed with LA. Saved by the Bell, Beverly Hills 90210, Channel 1 in my classroom with Anderson Cooper. I'd just been obsessed with LA. And so I met my now wife, and she said, "I live in LA." I said, "Well, I'm moving to LA." And so
you did it again.
And so I made up my mind. And
she's your Sally Canfield.
So the morning after the election, and she said, "I have a serious boyfriend." I said, "That's okay." I never asked about him again. And so the morning after the re-election, I didn't even stay for the party. Someone paid me to move their furniture. I drove 40-something hours to LA to make it to a party at her house, and I've been clean for 20 years from politics. Yeah.
Oh my God! But you had a Ray Donovan kind of a job in LA before you got into the sports biz. You cleaned up some things for some people.
I do want to give him credit. We were smoking cigars on at his ranch, and George W. actually gave me the freedom. I've always been grateful for this, because I was getting a lot of guilt tripping from a lot of my bosses about leaving, and he said, "Why are you leaving?" I said, "Well, it's my dream to have my own company and run my own business, and I'd love to make $1 million." I didn't know that's what it required to, I didn't know how. I thought that was a lot of money, and he said, "Well, you better go. Don't let anybody talk you into staying. You get out of here." So he actually gave me his blessing. It was great. So yeah, I moved out to LA and had a maxed out credit card. Didn't know anyone in LA really, and so I was living on a guy's couch, a former athlete's couch, and I realized that I needed to come up with something because I was too young for the jobs. My resume.
But as a press secretary for the press, I mean, this is a guy that knows how to handle the media.
I'll never forget one of my biggest interviews was Zinnia Muka. She was Bob Iger's right hand for decades, head of public affairs at Disney, and kind of a chief of staff to Bob Iger. And I was interviewing for a big SVP job, and went to lunch with her in the cafeteria. Bob Iger was there, and she said, I promise he doesn't remember, but she said to me, "You're just not old enough to have 10 people twice your age reporting to you. It's just going to cause me too many problems. And so basically she told me, you're qualified, but you're not old enough for this job. And I had a realization, I need to come up with a way to make a living. So I knew every member of the national media from the morning shows to the evening shows, to the White House press corps, the political press. I knew everyone. So I started introducing myself to people as a crisis manager. And
Perfect.
I got asked to speak.
There's always a crisis in Hollywood.
Sam Goris asked me to speak to Paradigm all the agents at Paradigm, and I got about 15 phone calls after that speech. And
cleaning up
off to the
celebrities.
races, yeah.
You ever clean up a crime scene? Don't answer that question. Don't answer that question. So you go on to start Marucci Bats. Marucci Bats, the baseball bat company. You built it. You sold it for $200 million. But let me ask, the tornado bat, is it not a Marucci bat?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. So I co-founded Marucci with Kurt Ainsworth, who's now the current CEO. I talked to him yesterday about the torpedo bats. Kurt had been making bats in his backyard, but didn't really know how to raise money or start a company. So I said, I'll raise the money if I get to be the CEO. So I was the founding CEO. And we really disrupted a lot of industry and incumbents. Louisville Slugger and Easton had been legacy incumbents, and we put them, really destroyed those two businesses in about 5 years. But what we did was we used different materials, and this is relevant to today's story, the story in the news. We used maple bats. 99% of the bats at the time were ash. So we used different materials, and it had different, it was a completely different product, and we flipped most of the major leagues in about 5 years. So fast forward to last year, Marucci has a lab now. Obviously, Marucci's been sold twice to private equity, lots of money in technology. And so Marucci is the leader in the industry from Little League to Major League. And so they made these bats because they started doing all this studies on where the ball hits the bat for each person's swing. So you, Billy Bush, you're going to hit the bat on a certain place on the bat every time you swing. Well, they want the other parts of the bat, they want to be skinnier so that you'll foul it off instead of putting a crappy ground ball in play. And so Marucci actually worked with the Yankees last year. The Yankees reached out,
put a trampoline in the middle of it,
and they put all the density in the spot, not in the sweet spot, in the spot where that player strikes the ball.
Oh shoot! Yeah. Each player gets their
own. It's
custom.
Yeah.
All right. So LA Golf, it happens. It's amazing what you've been able to do. But right now, most importantly, is the first ever of its kind Face ID driver. Basically, this driver. Now, you test your swing speed, you fill out a bunch of different things, but swing speed is the most important. And like Marucci did for the Yankees, for each batter, each golfer has the bulge on the face matches their swing speed, so it's built for you. I just shot a 77 with it on its first. I
paid for it.
You paid for that. You lost the bet. But anyway, you got Bryson DeChambeau. How did you get Bryson DeChambeau to design this thing?
Yeah, so it's a great backstory. So LA Golf really was, I founded it to be a reboot of Marucci, where you partner with players, not just on marketing, but where they're really involved with every aspect of the R&D, because they actually know more. Most companies use them in Christmas pajamas for a photo shoot for social media. They actually really know what they're doing, and the R&D departments don't actually get a ton of feedback from them. Bryson had been running around to Cobra, Callaway, saying, hey, I've got this idea. The old days, the wooden drivers had curvature on the face. There was less spin off the toe and heel. Nobody would listen to him. So for years, he thought that they just wouldn't listen, and that for years, he thought they just didn't understand. We've now found out the backstory to this driver, which we're going to make a documentary about. The driver itself is revolutionary. Bryson believes it's the biggest innovation since the Big Bertha 30 years ago, because it cuts side spin off the toe and heel by about 50%, basically turning a slice into a fade and a hook into a draw. But the backstory is that we found out during this process that TaylorMade, Callaway, and Titleist have never even tested a golf ball off the toe or heel. So no one was innovating because they don't have to. The customers just go buy. They repaint they repaint their same product every year. The customers go buy it. So Bryson, I'm very fortunate, because you said, how did we become partners with him? Bryson wanted to design his own product, and I did something no one had ever done for him, which is I gave him a blank sheet of paper, and I matched him up with the best engineer in the industry, Jeff Meyer. And the truth is, Bryson's like being partners with Elon Musk. He doesn't just play the game; he builds his own rockets.
It's absolutely incredible. Well, lagolf.com is where to go if you want to just, you fill out the questionnaire, and you will have this new state-of-the-art driver. I'm promising you. It just cuts down on your mistakes, which is great, which is what every golfer wants to do, because it's a darn painful sport. off to the Masters. LA Golf has a huge party down there. They'll be hosting Central there at the Oz. We've got Bryson DeChambeau. I'm feeling like this could be his time for the green jacket. LA Golf's Reed Dickens in the house. Buddy,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. What a story.
This was fun.
We are sponsored by LA Golf because it is great. Get yourself a driver, get yourself a putter with the tungsten face. Change your game. Thanks, folks, for listening. We're back. We're back on Monday. Bye.